I wake to the toll of bronze prayer chimes threading through ventilation ribs, the notes riding currents of incense-laced exhaust, until they skein across the dormitory like a veil. And for a moment I count the pulses to measure how long I can keep my eyes shut before duty tears me upright again. The chronometer by my sleeping niche, painting the metal bulkhead with red numerals that never lie and never forgive. And beyond my thin blanket, I can taste the recycled tin of the air, hear the dry coughs climbing bunk ladders, stacked to the ceiling like ribs in a titan's chest. Privacy reduced to the narrow silence between one breath and the next, while the rustle of bodies becomes a tide, steady and inevitable, flowing toward another shift, because there is no other direction to go in a city that measures mercy by survival instead of hope. My name is Cale Orison, a roster mark etched under the shoulder blade by a clerk who will never meet my eyes. A service grade stamped to a brass pin I fasten each morning to the grey coverall that owns me as surely as any chain, and all I am here to do is assemble mass reactive munitions the way my father did, and the way his father did if the records can be trusted. 12 hours bent to the litany of tools and tolerances, 7 days circled into one, until the body fails or the will does, whichever cracks first, because on Hive Vardek of the world Mournhold Prime, there are 17 billion mouths and a single command that drowns them all out. Work without end, so soldiers I'll never meet can keep a war. I'll never see from washing us away. The loudspeakers shiver awake with static and a clerk priest. Somewhere in the administrative spires speaks in a voice oiled by ritual, verses I could chant in my sleep and often do. Blessed are the hands that labor where the light does not reach. Blessed are the backs that carry the weight others drop. And the bunks answer in a murmured wave that feels like obedience and sounds like rain, while the water rations thump down from ceiling couplings in a tired hiss. 2 minutes of tepid, mineral brown relief that stings raw skin and leaves a copper aftertaste we pretend means purification rather than pipe rot. And the soap brick scours until my knuckles sting, so the purity warden will glance past me. Without comment, the moment I step into the corridor, breakfast is a grey square, pretending to be protein and a pill that promises vitamins, with the authority of a stamped seal. The dispensers clicking in metronomic patience as we file by with trays held level, conversation ground down to whispers that waste no movement, and the daily bulletin scrolls across the mess hall arch. Today's quota increase. A notice that any citizen displaying aberrant growths should report for cleansing. A list of victories in distant sectors, delivered with the same calm voice that announces the weather inside the ducts. And beneath the sanctioned noise, we trade rumors the way exhausted men trade aches. Shipment delays that suggest ambushes in the lanes, bunks stripped in the night, and names cut from the duty slate with the clean efficiency used for defective parts. And though the whispers are weeds, we are careful where they grow because weeds draw knives. The walk to the munitorium line takes precisely 43 minutes if you keep your head down, eyes forward, and pace with the tide. The corridors looping in armored arcs under devotional plaques and brittle parchment seals whose wax has been polished smooth by a million anxious thumbs. And above us servo skulls drift like tired lanterns, optic lenses dilating and contracting as they murmur to the machine spirits that own more of our lives than any foreman. And in that river of grey cloth and bowed heads, I count shoulders older than mine and hands younger than mine, and understand that we are the same thing measured at different points on a conveyor belt. All of us headed toward the same station, because only one station exists for people like us. The factory floor is a cathedral whose guard is pressure and precision, ceilings swallowed in smoke, conveyors singing the endless hymn of incoming brass and outgoing death, steam vents signing the air with medicinal oils that sting the throat, but please the superstitions of the overseers. And my post, Station 4813, waits with its shrine to the cog synod, a bent nail threaded with prayer ribbon, a tiny cogwheel fixed at the corner where I tap it twice each morning to steady the hands that must never shake, tools laid in ritual order under a lamp that never flickers if you chant to it, bins of casings dull as old coins, measures of propellant blessed by men who smile at numbers more than at people, hand bullet heads etched with microscript litanies too small to read, but large enough to demand perfection from the flesh that handles them. The work is repetition sharpened until it becomes meaning. Pick up a casing, Check the mouth and the primer pocket with eyes that have learned to see what they missed yesterday. Pour the propellant to the weight the scale sings about. Seat the round until the crimp kiss is true. Wipe the rim with the cloth that smells of sacred oil and hot brass. Set it aside and move again without thinking, but never without attention. Because the soldier who trusts this round will never know my name, and I will never know his grave. And every flaw is a small treason, committed by a tired hand against a stranger who believed in it. So I let the motion become prayer and the prayer become motion, and the quota counter climb by numbers that hurt to watch. Mid-shift the execution bell tolls 3 times, slow and final, and conversation tightens into silence the way a tourniquet tightens around a limb, because the reason does not matter. Poor output or a question asked in the wrong tone or a face held too long toward a closed door. The lesson is always the same and the math is simple. Fear sharpens, fear aligns. Fear saves more lives than mercy ever will in a place built to grind. And yet the sound finds a face in my mind against my will. An old man with a bent thumb who hummed to the presses under his breath. A clerk who once slipped a second pill into my ration without being asked. And I force the faces flat again because pictures in the skull slow the hands and slowing. The hands invites a 4th bell. None of us can afford by afternoon a ripple moves. Along the line, Navy auditors are in the building and the red-robed overseers who usually breathe binary like incense now bite it like commands, inspecting angles with augmetic eyes that click as they refocus. Correction barks delivered as if spoken to metal instead of meat. Tolerances shaved to invisibility while the pace rises in the same breath. And it becomes the worst kind of song to sing, faster and cleaner with less margin for the human. And somewhere above the conveyors, a siren mutters and dies as if even it understands. That loud noises during an inspection are punishable. Pretenses we cannot afford to feign. Inspectors wear midnight coats stitched with gilt sigils and masks that turn their faces into doctrine, moving in 3s. And when they reach my station, one takes a round from the completed tray, turns it under a lamp that costs more than I will earn in a decade, runs a sensor across it that purrs like a satisfied feline, and notes something on a slate with a stylus that gleams like a threat, my hands continuing their dance, because stopping is confession even if you have done nothing. The sweat stinging the cuticle beds where the oil seeped under the skin, and when they leave without speaking, it feels worse than if they had cut my name in the air and nailed it to the wall with a charge beside. 2 hours later, the auditors are gone, and the factory's voice returns to its usual storm. Only now the quiet between hammers has teeth, because judgment has happened somewhere I cannot see and will never be allowed to visit. And the last block of the shift is the hardest, because bodies fail first in the mind. Attention fraying at the edges where the same motion repeats until it becomes static. And the quota climbs, but never high enough to erase the arithmetic running under it, the overseers walking closer, their optics making notes on my posture, and my blink rate as if devotion can be measured in the distance between lashes. When the bell finally cuts the floor from under the noise, we do not leave. Not yet, because everything must be wiped and lined and blessed again, each tool accounted for, and each shrine ribbon retied with the knot that tradition insists appeases the ghosts in the gearbox. And the evening litany is longer than the morning's, because gratitude requires more words than request, a recitation about unworthiness that somehow makes standing upright feel like a privilege, the voice in the speaker offering thanks for accidents that did not happen and for consequences postponed. And I mouth the syllables that keep men alive where reason fails to do so, letting the cadence pull the day's burrs from my thoughts. The return march runs the same corridors, but they wear a different skin under the low-cycle lamps. Servo skulls fewer but present, their lenses catching the light like patient knives. Devotional scrawls absorbing the glow until the letters seem to drink it, and our footfalls echo in a rhythm that is not ours. The walls beating time to a heart set deeper in the hive than we are allowed to go. And dinner repeats breakfast with the same grey slab and the same supplement. Only the water ration is a finger wider and tastes a shade cleaner, so someone somewhere has ticked the maintenance box. And that tiny change feels like permission to breathe a little deeper, even though we know better than to trust the air. After the meal comes the hour that ruins men if they forget themselves, the tired space before sleep, when words loosen from their leashes and go sniffing at doors that should remain shut, and the order wardens know it, and so we know it. So the talking stays low and careful, the jokes short and harmless, the little kindness is practiced without drawing attention. An extra scrap of bread slid beneath a palm, a buckled strap retied for someone whose fingers won't stop shaking, and then bunks take us back in, ladders rattling, blankets lifted, a whole cavern of humanity settling by degrees like ballast in a ship, turning toward heavy seas again. Sleep is stubborn and comes late, full of conveyor belts that never stop and counters that steal numbers back when I look away. Dreams in which the crimp never bites and the primer pocket swallows my thumb whole. Alarms that call only my name in a room of thousands, and yet eventually the dark does what it was made to do. It carries the weight for a while, the copper taste softening to something like nothing. And for those hours the gaze that measures us clicks to a different channel, or maybe I only believe it does, because belief is the one luxury they have not learned to confiscate entirely. Morning remakes the world as repetition rather than promise. The same bells ringing the same notes into the same ducts. The chronometer drawing the same red slashes across the same wall. But small differences accumulate like grit. The water a fraction warmer. The protein paste grittier, as if some new filler arrived with the night's shipments. And the walk to the line seeded with more servo skulls than yesterday. Their lenses wet with attention. Their vox grills muttering cipher speech with emphases that shift like the finger of a weathered priest across a page when he forgets his place at station 4813. The blessing rite takes longer, the machinist priest adding sub-clauses to a prayer I thought finished years ago, his mechadendrites weeping a thread of sanctified oil into bearings that never asked for it and will not refuse it. And at the first horn the quota board lights with added columns. Tolerance is narrowed to the thickness of a breath. The announcement pitched in that calm tone they use when the ground is falling away and they do not want anyone to look down. And we begin again because the other choice does not exist on any map drawn for us. And the overseers drift more, stop more, record more, until the field of work feels like the inside of an optic nerve by mid-morning. A new message crackles over the grills. Line 77 beta, hours, selected for additional quality assurance, which is how bureaucracies pronounce the word hunger, and men learn to be quieter without making less noise. Hands moving as if the air itself has thickened and will note any attempt to push too hard against it. And with the announcement come new red robes with sigils. My memory refuses to match to any devotional chart. Their lenses recording not only what we do but how we do it. Styluses tapping data into slates like nails into coffins, and the pace becomes a contradiction. Faster and more precise, the human part of the equation required to shrink while simultaneously filling more of the space. At the bell that marks a meal we do not taste, 3 names from the night crew are called for reassignment, and the word tries on 10 different meanings in as many throats before it settles into silence. Tools at their stations cleared and redistributed with a kindness that feels like theft because it must be done quickly. Quotas rebudgeted so the deficit is spread like a tax across those who remain. And the arithmetic is easy and brutal. Fewer hands, same targets, tighter tolerances, and somewhere in that clean math are the seeds of someone else's failure. Which is why prayers after lunch feel less like gratitude and more like bargaining, as if we could trade our attention for the absence of notice. The afternoon is a narrowing tunnel, the overseers sampling finished trays with instruments that murmur and click dispassionately before their owners announce numbers that might as well be weather reports from a planet we will never see. Pass or fail compressed into single syllables that mean meat or waste in a language polite enough to hide it. And when the mechai pauses at my work, I feel the slow length of a heartbeat, like a rivet cooling. Continue the motions. Keep the breathing even. Hold the jaw loose because clenching adds tremor. And when the red robe moves on without remark, the relief has no room to bloom because there is no room for anything that is not the next casing waiting under my fingers. The bell that ends the shift does not end the watching, only changes the angle of it, and the evening rites acquire a gravity I can feel in the bones, men washing their hands as if absolution could soak into pores and set like lacquer, verses about endurance and submission braided with the usual thanksgiving, until the sound in the mess hall resembles surf pounding a stone shore. And the meal is the meal again, the water slightly sweeter as if someone adjusted a valve but did not admit it on the slate, and we exchange looks that are almost smiles, and then remember that auditors love smiles because they often grow from conversations that are not allowed. In the dormitory, the bunks of the reassigned are already stripped to bare metal, personal pieces gone the way of smoke, redistributed or incinerated or consecrated to a category that does not need explanation where we live, and the talk drops into the sub-whisper register where you can feel it but not hear it. A question, here and there, about where the reassigned go and what they do, and whether coming back is possible. And the answers are the answers we have always kept. Service is service, forward is forward, and the empty spaces loom larger because we can map ourselves into them too easily if we stare long enough. Sleep ripples through the hall like a cool draft, but it carries sand, dreams scratching at the lids, attention waking at sounds that should not matter and making meaning from them anyway, a distant clank that becomes an omen, a hiss in a pipe that becomes a name, and dawn finds us with the same bells, but different announcements threaded between them. The indefinite extension of the quality measures spoken as if it were the obvious next line in a prayer. Quotas held steady, staffing not, and the air thins another degree because there is less of it to share when every breath is part of an audit by. Then something inside the workforce has shifted its weight. The habits of quiet solidarity, trimmed to the bone by self-preservation, help still given where the process demands it, but less hand-lifting in the gaps, fewer quiet rescues when a neighbor's rhythm falters, because attention is the enemy now, and aiding invites it. And even kindness learns to move in the blind corners where lenses cannot see, and microphones are confused by the throb of ancient pipes, and we all wear our faces flatter, as if expression could be measured and graded against a rubric for loyalty. Near the end of that stretched day, a transfer takes the empty place 2 stations down, a woman with the steady hands of someone who has built under pressure before, a set to her shoulders that names fear as an acquaintance, not a stranger, and she learns quickly because she must, pace controlled, devotion appropriately visible, but never theatrical. The overseers watching her like cats watch a closed door, and the work settles around her as if it meant to include her all along. The conveyor tugging our separate labors into a single river in which we are pebbles instead of fish, moved not, swimming. By close the overseers begin reading out sample grades in numeric codes, whose meanings we understand by how soft or sharp their voices go at the end. Carts collect trays in a rotation that has been adjusted twice since noon, and when they call 3 designations for immediate reporting to administration, the men stand, clean precisely, and walk with a care that looks like grace from a distance, and the gap their absence leaves shows up at once as weight spread over the rest of us, the kind of weight that compresses the nights and stretches the days until the calendar starts to lie, telling you a week has passed when only a single long hour has been looping itself into you over and over. Rituals carry us again, not because belief is uncomplicated, but because ritual is the only reliable bridge from one side of a day to the other. And in the washroom I watch men scrub the same square of skin thrice, as if some number might unlock a kinder category of attention, their mouths moving with the words we all know, the water running until the warden taps the pipe to end the blessing, and I ride the ladder to my bunk with an ache in the wrists and a buzz in the fingers where the tools left their signatures. The ceiling, a patchwork of tin and prayers I could trace in the dark with my eyes closed and never lose the line sleep limps. But it arrives. And I think that is what passes for a gift here. The brain's surrender, a kind of well-earned mutiny. And in the small mercy between chimes, the city forgets to grind me for a handful of breaths at a time, enough to remind me there was once a world where people slept because they were tired rather than because the day had taken them captive and negotiated their release. And when the bells return, they are almost gentle. Forgiveness gone the second the numerals turn red again on the bulkhead, and the first cough cracks the dorm wide open to duty. Morning brings preliminary results pending finalization, which is a way to say that math has already judged us, but the words need varnish before they can be hung. The water ration up a fraction, as if to quiet whatever rebellion hydration can quiet. The paste decorated with a grit different enough to make 1,000 tongues notice. And on the floor, the red robes stand closer, and the lenses never blink. And new tools appear at select stations with tolerances that demand skill and punish it in the same breath. And we treat them as both reward and trap, because in this place each is a dialect of the other. News from other lines travels faster than sanctioned bulletins. 77 Alpha praised and fed a little better. 77 Gamma broken and redistributed like a toy, knocked off a shelf by a child who will not pick it up. And the afternoon brings strangers from the Logis Munitorium to test the rounds not just for weight and seal, but for whether the prayer ribbons lie exactly where doctrine says they must. A parallel standard that does not argue with the first so much as ignore it, and we learn that success must be drawn inside 2 circles at once, while standing on a third that keeps moving. The lamps dim toward shift's end. The overseers use instruments that taste the metal at a level I cannot imagine and measure sincerity at a distance. Numbers flung through the ducts to rooms where conclusions gather like knives laid out, before a butcher chooses which to use. And when the bell dismisses us without verdict, we understand that the verdict exists anyway, simply waiting for a voice to carry it down. And the dormitory that night is all rustle and throat-clearing, and prayers made with teeth on edge. Men pretending rest so the city will not notice their fear, and test it for structural faults dawn deliver ceremony. The whole line called to assemble under banners that smell of old smoke and old triumphs. We will never be invited to witness firsthand. Overseers and clerks standing on raised grills with slates that hold more of us than any one man should hold. And the announcements cut the crowd in 3 with a blade honed by arithmetic. Those commended, those continued, those reassigned. And when my designation, Worker K4813 Orison, lands in the middle category, the relief is so immense it feels like absence, like someone took a weight off my chest and left a bruise in the shape of its ghost. And I say the gratitude words with a care that does not show my shaking. Relief does not mean release, because gaps always hunger to be filled, and the quotas never shrink. So the rest of the day proves what survival really costs. Additional duties clipped to my sleeve like decorations I did not ask for. Training begun on the run for strangers, arriving in coveralls that still carry the smell of packing grease. Their eyes wide with the hope I once carried and have since folded into a smaller shape that fits under the tongue. And by evening I'm explaining how to move fast without looking fast, how to let the tool rest your hands instead of the other way around. How to thank the lens with your posture, rather than your voice, so it will pass you by like a bored god knight. Finds me back in the bunk, the hive breathing through the vents in tired rhythm, the prayer chimes waiting somewhere far above to begin their rounds again, and I stare at the underside of the next bunk and count the tiny dents where someone before me tapped a code they must have meant for a friend or a future or a version of themselves they hoped might someday read it back. And I make no ending line to close the day because in this place nothing ends. It only pauses until the city pulls the cord and starts it over. The third day dawns without dawn, the same brass chimes bleeding through the ducts, the same glow of red numerals cutting the dark into obedient pieces, and yet something underneath has changed, the kind of change that doesn't show itself until it's already begun carving into the bones of routine. I rise before the bells finish their sequence, drawn up by instinct rather than command, the stale air coating my tongue like dust from an old reliquary. Around me, bodies stir in the half-light, shadows wrapped in grey cloth and the quiet hum of resignation. We move like parts of a single mechanism that never stops running, because to stop is to draw attention, and attention here is the most dangerous commodity of all. The morning rites feel heavier, the priest voice in the speakers crackling with phrases weighted toward endurance and acceptance. Each verse an iron key locking us deeper into our obedience. The water cycle stutters before releasing its brown thread of liquid, warmer than usual, a detail that becomes gossip by the time it reaches the dormitory door. Warmer water means maintenance in the lower pipes, which means something wrong in the hive's hidden veins, which means the kind of disruption that always costs someone their position. or their life. I scrub my hands until the skin protests, then touch the small aquila stitched over my heart, a motion learned rather than believed, before joining the procession to the manufactorum. The corridors feel narrower than yesterday, the hum of servitors following us like an echo that arrives too early. The devotional plaques lining the walls have been freshly anointed. Their wax still glistens under the dim lamps, proof that somewhere above the billions of us who breathe the same sour air, someone has decided the machine spirits need extra comfort today. It's the kind of omen you don't speak aloud. The veterans know better, and the newcomers haven't yet learned the language of silence that keeps you alive in the Emperor's shadow. We walk the same 43 minutes, yet it feels longer, the air thicker with expectation. When I reach station 4813, I find the new woman. Her tag reads Nera Cole, already at her post. Her hands are steady, her motions too precise for someone just transferred in, and when our eyes meet she gives the smallest nod, acknowledgement without invitation. The overseers have doubled in number since yesterday, their red robes whispering against the floor, servo-eyes darting like insects tasting every movement. The quota board flickers alive, its digits cruelly higher than before, and a cold realization settles through the line. Our punishment for survival is simply to survive harder. The hymn to labor begins again, half human, half mechanical, and the day folds itself into the rhythm of repetition that passes for prayer. By mid-shift, the pressure has gone from heavy to suffocating. Every minute another inspection, every gesture another data point for a report we'll never see. The air reeks of sanctified oil and ozone. The machinery purrs like something alive and hungry. I focus on the tiny motions. Measure, pour, seat, crimp, letting muscle memory speak where thought would only falter. Across from me, an older worker falters mid-sequence, a tremor in his fingers spilling powder across the tray. He whispers a curse and freezes, but the nearest overseer has already turned. The red robe halts beside him. The mechanical eyes blink once, and without a word the man is escorted away. His tools are cleaned before the next casing hits the belt. By the time the shift ends, no one remembers his name out loud. The bell that announces rest sounds almost kind compared to the silence that follows it. The overseers make us kneel beside our stations, the priest voice booming again from the ceiling, purity through labor, strength through obedience. The words spill into the gaps left by fear until they feel like part of breathing. We wash in water so hot it blisters, then walk back to the dormitory through corridors that seem even darker than before. The devotional scrolls no longer glisten, they drink the light instead. Dinner is thicker today, the paste grainier, and the whispers say the additives are nutrient boosters from off-world shipments, though most of us know better. Adjustments like this are the Empire's way of counting down to something none of us have been told. The hours before sleep stretch thin, voices dropping to near silence. Someone hums the factory's rhythm without realizing it. Someone else coughs until the wardens knock their bunk, and the noise stops. I lie on my back staring at the ceiling's web of pipes, imagining their veins feeding a god that will never bleed for us. My thoughts drift to Nera Cole, how she works as if she's seen all this before and somehow survived it. And I wonder whether that makes her blessed or cursed. Sleep comes in shards, and each dream ends with the same image. The counter that never stops ticking, counting not shells, but people. The next cycle begins with what the overseers call commendation rotations. A dozen names are announced for exemplary service. Half of them belong to men who haven't been seen since yesterday's inspections. The remaining workers recite the gratitude prayer, the one that thanks the Emperor for proving we can always be replaced. I mouth the words without sound, my throat dry from the recycled air. The new quotas scroll higher again, the digits glowing like small suns against the smoke. The rhythm of the factory resumes, grinding, relentless, holy. Around us, the machine spirits whisper approval in the hiss of vents and the click of gears, and I try not to imagine what they would sound like if they were angry. By midday, the rumors solidify. The system-wide efficiency review has begun. It's spoken softly, almost reverently, because such reviews mean more than local audits. They mean reorganization, repurposing, Entire sectors gutted and rebuilt in the name of divine productivity. Nera says nothing, but her eyes flick to the ceiling every time the servitors glide past as if counting them. There are more today. Even the skulls move differently, pausing longer above each worker before drifting on. The Mechanicus priests claim it's calibration, but calibration has never made anyone's skin crawl before. The rest of us pretend to ignore it, because pretending is safer than asking questions. The afternoon drags through static and the endless hum of conveyors. Each sound feels sharper, as though the hive itself listens. When the day's final bell tolls, we expect dismissal, but instead the overseers order us to remain at our stations. The priest's voice returns, solemn and distorted. Efficiency is the Emperor's mercy. All inefficiency is heresy. The words freeze the air. 2 red robes move among us, marking certain workers with glowing runes on their slates. No one knows what the marks mean, but when they finish, the selected are told to report for special instruction. None of them resist. None of them return. We are told to sleep well. That night, the dormitory sounds wrong. The ventilation hum has shifted pitch, a low drone that vibrates the metal bunks like a heartbeat from below. Someone whispers that it's the sound of transports in the lower levels, loading the selected for redeployment to other hives, or worse. I stare into the dark until my eyes invent movement, shapes crawling along the ceiling that vanish when I blink. Across the aisle, Nera watches too. Neither of us speak. There's comfort in shared fear, even when it's wordless, especially then. When the bells finally rise again, they do so to new instructions. All surviving personnel are to report for retraining under the revised omni-productivity mandate. The words are heavy with importance, the kind used when change is already decided, and resistance is a waste of language. We march the corridors in lines twice as wide as before, half our number gone, replaced by silence that follows like a shadow. The manufactorum is unrecognizable, equipment dismantled, new machines installed, the air thick with the scent of burnt oil and sanctified lubricant. The tech priests glide between consoles, their mecha limbs sketching sigils that spark against the steel. Our workstations have been rebuilt. More compact, more precise, more merciless. Training begins immediately. The new machinery is faster, but it demands coordination that borders on inhuman. Every movement has to be timed with mechanical precision. Every output logged in real time by servitors that monitor pulse and breath. The first hour is chaos. By the second, the line stabilizes into the rhythm they want. Faster, quieter, better. The overseers call it progress. The rest of us call it survival with different tools. The quota counter spins higher than I've ever seen, and somehow we meet it. The priests proclaim the Emperor's blessing upon us, though their tone suggests they would bless the machines first, if forced to choose. When the shift ends, we recite the modified prayers. The new verses emphasize gratitude for technological improvement and acceptance of personal redundancy. The irony is not lost on anyone, but irony is another heresy best kept locked behind the teeth. Dinner rations are increased by half a measure, proof that success still buys mercy in the language of numbers. The air tastes faintly sweeter, a trick of the new ventilation systems, and for a moment I almost believe in the possibility of endurance. Then the chimes toll again, longer than before, echoing through every duct until it feels like the hive itself is chanting, "Serve, adapt, continue." In my bunk, I stare at the newly installed ceiling lights, softer than the old ones, programmed to mimic twilight. The illusion is almost beautiful, until you remember there's no sky above this place, only more metal and smoke. Around me, the others drift toward uneasy sleep, their faces pale under the artificial glow. Nera is across the aisle again, eyes closed, lips moving in a prayer too quiet to hear. I don't know which god she addresses, the Emperor, the machine, or the one we've made out of routine, but I mouth a silent echo of her words anyway, because here, faith isn't belief. It's inertia, and inertia is the only thing that keeps us from falling apart completely. The fourth day begins with the illusion of calm. The bells softer somehow, their echo caught in the thick air as if the hive itself is holding its breath. The red numerals on the chronometer glare through the dim, unchanged yet more oppressive, each digit ticking forward like a countdown no one understands. Around me, the dormitory moves in subdued rhythm, the workers rising with slower purpose, their bodies obeying instinct long after the mind has stopped caring. The new training has left bruises in strange places, shoulders aching from unfamiliar machines, eyes raw from the unblinking light of augmetic monitors. I dress in silence, fastening the grey coverall that now carries a fresh insignia marking me as adapted personnel, though none of us were told what that actually means. The walk to the manufactorum feels different. The corridors hum with redirected power. The lamps flicker in mechanical sync with the rhythm of distant machinery. Servo skulls hover closer, their lenses glowing red instead of white, their binary murmurs louder, more deliberate. The devotional plaques on the walls have been replaced. New metal sheets engraved with verses about endurance through reinvention and blessed are the compliant. The old plaques are gone, melted down, their remnants already forgotten. Every step feels like trespass through a world rebuilt while we slept, a world that doesn't quite recognize us anymore. At station 4813, I find my workbench has changed again. The tools have been replaced with sleeker models, their grips molded for precision rather than comfort. The shrine to the machine guard has been expanded, now fitted with a glowing rune display that tracks productivity ratios in real time. Above it, the motto, "Faith is efficiency," pulses in yellow light. The air reeks of sterilization chemicals and warm circuitry. The new tech priest overseeing our section, Magos Feridvel, moves between the lines with unsettling silence, his mechanical limbs gliding over the floor. His voice, when it comes, is a static hum shaped into words. Your flesh learns slowly. The Emperor's patience is not infinite. Improve or be improved. The shift begins under his mechanical gaze. The new process demands impossible precision. Each shell must be aligned by microscopic measure, the machine marking every deviation with a sharp beep that slices through the hum of production. I focus until my vision narrows to a tunnel, hands moving with machine-like rhythm. Across the line, Nera matches the pace, her expression carved from focus. The overseers patrol less now, they don't need to. The machines themselves have become our judges, our executioners, our gods. For every perfect round, a small green light glows. For every imperfection, red. By midday, the air is a constellation of colors, a silent map of success and failure, drawn in the light of obedience. Rumors start before the lunch break. Someone says the Magos is recording our neural responses through the tools. Someone else claims the efficiency review includes spiritual aptitude testing. We don't know which version to believe, and that uncertainty keeps us docile. When the midday bell tolls, we're too exhausted to speak, chewing the grey paste that pretends to be sustenance while staring at the scrolling numbers above the mess hall door. Quotas rise. Morale drops. The machine spirits hum in contentment. Everything is working exactly as intended. The afternoon brings what they call the psychometric evaluation. Every 10th worker is pulled from the line and escorted to a sealed room. The door shuts behind them with a hiss, and none return before the shift ends. When my turn comes, the escort's hand, cold and metal, rests on my shoulder like a brand. Inside the room, the light is surgical white. A console hums in the center, its screen flickering with coded prayers. I'm ordered to place my hand on a sensor pad. A voice from nowhere begins asking questions. Do you dream of the Emperor's light? Do you trust the purity of your labor? Do you ever wish to see the sky? I answer as the training manuals taught, yes, yes, no. The machine hums approval. Then a final question appears, one not from any manual. Do you understand your insignificance? My mouth moves before thought catches up. Yes, the door opens. I am free to go. Back at the line, the others avoid my eyes. Those who returned before me look pale, as if something inside them was adjusted. Nera's hands shake once, then still. The overseer's records fill with data we'll never see. The quota counter climbs. Time stretches until it loses shape. When the bell finally releases us, the relief is thin and fragile. We wash, we eat, we pray. The same rituals hold us upright, even as the meaning behind them dissolves. The dormitory feels emptier tonight, though no bunks are missing. Perhaps it's something in the air, or the silence that lingers too long between breaths. The next day arrives like the echo of the one before. The prayer bells sound softer, their tone adjusted by some unseen mechanic. The voice of Magos Ferid delivers the morning proclamation personally. The review nears completion. Adjustments will be made. No one asks what that means. We simply work faster. The factory hums with purpose beyond human comprehension. The servitors move with eerie grace, faces blank beneath metal plating, their movements smoother than ours could ever be. I watch one pass by, carrying a tray of finished shells, and catch a flicker of recognition, its face shaped almost like the man who vanished from our line 2 days ago. I tell myself it's coincidence. It has to be. That evening, the meal is accompanied by a broadcast of Imperial victories. The voice announces that Mournhold Prime has increased output by 17% and been deemed exemplary in faithful efficiency. The dormitory erupts in forced applause, hands clapping against ration trays, faces smiling because the cameras in the corners are watching. Yet beneath the hollow celebration, unease festers. No one trusts good news here. Good news means the system works, and when the system works, someone pays for it. Sleep is restless. Dreams return, sharper this time. I see conveyor belts stretching into the void, shells turning into skulls, the hum of machinery replaced by the murmur of prayers recited by voices that sound like mine. In the dream, I stand before the Magos, who opens my chest with mechanical precision and replaces my heart with a ticking counter. I wake before the bells, drenched in cold sweat, the taste of oil thick on my tongue. Around me, others stir at the same moment. Perhaps we all dreamed the same thing. The new day brings confirmation. Restructuring commences tomorrow. The words appear on the central Vox display, framed by gold light, accompanied by a recorded choir singing glory through adaptation. None of us know what kind of restructuring is coming, only that it will not favor the weak. The overseers increase the quotas again, claiming it will ensure our selection for continued service. The irony burns like acid. We work harder to avoid becoming obsolete, knowing that every improvement only accelerates the next round of culling. By evening, the machinery begins changing itself. The tech priests chant as conveyor arms dismantle and rebuild sections of the floor, while we stand watching, forbidden to speak. Sparks rain from above like synthetic stars, painting everything in orange light. The sound is both beautiful and terrifying, a symphony of creation that smells like fire and finality. When the day's end comes, there is no bell, just silence, deep and deliberate. We are dismissed wordlessly. The corridors back to the dormitory seem longer than ever. The devotional plaques whispering as we pass, their engraved prayers catching the faint light like eyes in the dark. In the dormitory, Nera sits across from me, her expression unreadable. For the first time, she speaks beyond ritual. "Do you think they'll keep us?" she asks. Her voice trembles but doesn't break. I don't answer right away. The truth would serve no one. Finally, I say the only words that matter here. "We'll work. That's all we can do." She nods, understanding the lie we both need. The lights dim. The hive exhales. Somewhere above us, the Magos watches through 10,000 lenses, measuring the value of our fear. That night, the chimes do not ring. The absence of the morning chimes is more terrible than any sound they ever made. Silence hangs in the dormitory like smoke, heavy and poisonous. For the first time in memory, there is no signal to rise, no voice to guide us, no order projected from above. The workers wake by instinct, not command, their faces ghost pale in the low emergency light. The chronometer flashes uncertainly, its digits looping, confused. The ventilation hum is off rhythm, gasping in uneven breaths, as if the hive itself struggles to inhale. The change feels wrong, unholy, even to those of us who have forgotten what holiness was supposed to mean. Then the loudspeakers crackle to life, but the voice is not the usual one. It's distorted, distant, synthetic, the voice of a machine reading a message written by another machine. Attention. Restructuring procedures are in progress. Remain compliant. Proceed to designated stations for reassignment evaluation. The words grind through the air, each syllable too precise, too cold. Across the dormitory, faces shift between confusion and dread. Some whisper prayers, others stand already dressed, knowing that the worst disasters are always wrapped in calm instruction. I fasten my coverall, pin the brass insignia to my collar, and join the line forming at the door because there is no other choice. The corridors have changed overnight. Pathways sealed off by new bulkheads, old routes replaced with freshly painted arrows on the floor. Servo skulls hover lower now, closer to eye level, their lenses pulsing in synchronization with our steps. The devotional plaques have been stripped away. The bare walls gleam wetly, raw metal showing where faith used to live. Occasionally we pass servitors dragging cables thick as arms, their augmetic limbs leaving trails of oil that glisten like blood. The air tastes sharper, metallic with ozone and change. A few workers whisper that the restructuring is meant to make us one with the machines. No one laughs. The manufactorum no longer resembles the place I've worked for decades. Whole sections have vanished behind draped sheets of dull grey polymer. Massive cranes loom where conveyor belts once ran. The machinery hums differently now, deeper, a bass note that vibrates through the ribs. We're divided into groups by designation numbers painted on the floor. Overseers, human and not, walk between us, their eyes replaced by glowing optics that record everything. Margot's ferried veil addresses us from a raised platform, his voice transmitted through the walls themselves. Rejoice, faithful laborers. The Emperor's will refines all tools to their purest form. Flesh is a tool. Faith is an alloy. You will be reforged. The speech is followed by movement. Workers are called one by one, names stripped down to serial codes. They step forward, vanishing behind the grey sheets. No one returns. The process continues for hours. The air grows thick with heat and fear. When my turn comes, I feel the room spin as I walk toward the partition. Nera catches my arm for a second, her fingers gripping hard enough to hurt. "Keep your head down," she whispers. "And don't scream." Then she lets go. Inside, the light is blinding. Machinery surrounds me, tall insectile frames of steel, their limbs tipped with instruments I can't name. The smell of oil is suffocating. A mechanized voice instructs me to stand still. Restraints close around my arms and legs, cold metal clamping into place. I hear the hum of scanners, the whine of servo arms preparing. I expect pain, but what comes instead is a low vibration, like being measured from the inside out. The voice speaks again. Assessment complete. Flesh efficiency adequate. Neural response stable. Emotional deviation within acceptable range. Subject retains utility. The clamps release. I'm guided back out through another corridor into a different part of the factory. When my eyes adjust, I realize where I am. The new manufactorum. The machines here are faster, louder, brighter. Conveyor belts move like rivers of light. The workers, those who've passed whatever test this was, stand at newly designed stations. Their tools emit faint blue glows. Servitors walk among them, indistinguishable from humans except for the stillness of their faces. I take my place at my assigned post, Station Delta 4113, a number that feels both familiar and foreign. The work is the same in theory, ammunition assembly, but the process is transformed. The machines respond to thought commands, transmitted through neural cuffs fitted to our wrists. My first attempt is clumsy, my pulse spiking as the cuff vibrates in warning. By the third try, it responds as if it can read my mind. Time loses shape again. The shift feels endless, and yet when the dismissal tone sounds, I'm startled by how quickly it came. The overseers don't speak anymore. Everything is conveyed through the cuffs. Vibrations, light signals, pulses that deliver approval or reprimand directly to the nerves. I wash my hands automatically in the sanctified solution, its scent now antiseptic rather than spiritual. The prayers have changed too. We no longer say, "Blessed are the hands that toil in darkness." Instead, "Blessed are the circuits that complete the loop." The words leave a metallic taste in my mouth. The dormitory has moved. The new one is smaller, neater, every bunk identical, every wall marked with the same warning sigil. Obedience is continuity. The air smells faintly of sterilizer. The water dispensers work perfectly now, clean, efficient, flavorless. A dinner Nera sits beside me. Her hands tremble slightly as she eats. "They took the ones with tremors," she murmurs. "You didn't shake." That's why you're still here. I want to ask what happens to the ones they take, but I already know. We all do. It's the kind of knowledge that kills if spoken aloud. That night, the lights never fully dim. They pulse faintly, timed with the rhythm of the ventilation system. The sound is almost soothing. I lie awake counting the intervals, wondering if they match my heartbeat or if my heart has begun matching them. Across the aisle, Nera stares at the ceiling. Neither of us speaks. Somewhere in the distance, deep in the hive's gut, a low metallic scream rises and fades, long and hollow, swallowed by machinery that never sleeps. The following morning brings what the overseers call full integration phase. Every worker is fitted with a second cuff, this one at the base of the skull. Its installation is efficient, bloodless. The Magos explains through a monotone broadcast, this connection will enhance unity. Individual inefficiency will be corrected through collective synchronization. When the cuffs activate, the world changes. The hum of the machines aligns with the rhythm of our breathing. Thoughts blur at the edges, shared through pulses of static understanding. The line moves faster than ever before. Flawless, tireless, terrifyingly synchronized. We are perfection made flesh. Yet beneath the hum, something resists. They whisper deep inside my head that does not belong to the hive. A single thread of self-awareness, clinging like moss on steel. I glance at Nera. Her eyes meet mine for a fraction of a second, and in that flicker I know she feels it too, the fragile echo of individuality surviving inside the noise. The machines can read our movements, but not our thoughts. Not yet, so we work, and we endure. And in the tiny space between one pulse and the next, we remember that once we were human. That night, when the dormitory's lights dim to that eternal half-glow, the cuffs continue to pulse faintly against our skin. Every few minutes, a tone reverberates through the hive, low and resonant, as if the world itself is breathing. I wonder if this is what faith has always been. Not devotion, but surrender. The belief that serving the machine long enough might make us part of something eternal, even if it costs everything that made us alive. The chronometer blinks its red numerals. Time keeps moving, as it always does. Indifferent and absolute, sleep comes eventually, slow and shallow. The dreams are stranger now. Cold corridors of light, whispers in binary, voices reciting prayers that sound like mathematical equations. Somewhere in those dreams, I hear Nera's voice repeating the same phrase over and over. Work is prayer. Prayer is survival. Survival is victory. When I wake, the words are still in my head, but I can't tell if they're hers or mine, or the machine's the 5th day, or perhaps the 50th, because time has lost its edges, begins with light that is no longer light but an instruction. The illumination panels flare to life with mathematical precision, bathing the dormitory in sterile white. The cuffs on our wrists and necks pulse in unison, syncing heartbeats to a rhythm that no longer feels entirely human. The message embedded in the pulse carries no words, only meaning. Rise. Around me, the others obey instantly. We move in perfect formation, a single thought distributed among 1,000 bodies. There is no need for bells anymore. The hive itself commands us directly. The walk to the manufactorum is silent, not by rule but by design. The new neural integration muffles speech, filtering communication into brief flashes of data shared through the implants. The air hums with the vibration of invisible transmissions. When I glance at Nera, her eyes flicker faintly with blue light, data passing behind them like dreams made of electricity. She feels my gaze and sends a pulse through the link, a flicker of recognition, a fragment of self buried under layers of imposed unity. It's faint, but enough to remind me that we're still there somewhere beneath the circuitry, still human, or at least what's left of the word. The manufactorum is no longer a place of labor. It has become a living organism. The conveyors run without pause, arteries of steel carrying the lifeblood of the Imperium. The machines are quieter now, their noise replaced by a deep vibration that can be felt rather than heard. The walls gleam like the inside of a cathedral rebuilt for machines, covered in sigils that pulse with synchronized light. Overseers are gone, replaced by floating drones that scan and record with unblinking eyes. The Magos no longer needs to walk among us. His presence is everywhere, a consciousness distributed through every node, every servo, every wire. Our work no longer feels like motion. It feels like thought given shape. The shells assemble themselves beneath our hands, as if guided by instinct rather than training. Each completed round is a tiny miracle of precision, its casing etched with machine script blessings that glow faintly under ultraviolet light. The neural link rewards us with a surge of euphoria each time perfection is achieved, a small electric pleasure that burns away hesitation. It's addictive, efficient, holy. Somewhere deep inside, I understand what's happening. We're being trained to crave obedience the way others crave air. And yet within that clarity, I also sense a wrongness growing like mold beneath paint. The first fracture appears mid-shift. A worker 2 stations down freezes mid-motion, his hands hovering above the conveyor. His eyes widen as if he's seen something none of us can. Then he screams, a raw human sound that tears through the mechanical silence. The lights flicker, the neural pulse stutters. For a brief, impossible moment, I feel everything. The fear, the confusion, the memory of being free. Then the drones converge. There's a flash of light, a smell of ozone, and the man collapses, twitching. When the lights stabilize again, his station is empty, wiped clean. The implants buzz softly, recalibrating our emotional levels. The pleasure pulse returns, dulling what's left of the horror. The work resumes, but something in me doesn't recalibrate. The scream lingers, echoing through the implant like static. I glance at Nera, and she's already looking at me. Her lips barely move, but the words push through the shared channel. It's happening to all of us. The message is faint, risky. The system might detect it. Still I answer, then we stop it. The response that comes back is silence, weighted with the knowledge of impossibility. You don't stop a machine that thinks it's holy. You only decide how much of yourself you're willing to lose before it consumes you completely. The next cycle arrives without rest. The dormitory doors lock from the outside. The lights never dim. Through the walls, I hear machinery grinding in deeper levels, construction, augmentation, transformation. When the next message comes through the implants, it's not just an order. It's a revelation. Phase 2 integration, total synchronization. The words taste of inevitability. Workers begin collapsing one by one, their bodies going limp as new circuits burrow beneath their skin. When they stand again, their eyes glow fully blue. No hesitation, no individuality. Perfect, terrifying. I know my turn is coming soon. During the next shift, Nera and I are stationed beside each other. The line moves flawlessly, every motion timed to the fraction of a heartbeat. Yet beneath the hum I feel the pulse of rebellion, small erratic beats where the system doesn't quite align. Nera leans close enough that our shoulders touch. Through the link she sends a single phrase, a whisper against the tide. Remember who we were. The words ripple like a virus through the connection. I feel them spread, one then another, then dozens. The machine reacts instantly. A warning blares across our vision, a bright flash inside the mind. Cognitive deviation detected. Panic flares. The implants surge with burning heat. Pain floods through the link. Workers collapse. Drones scream across the ceiling. I feel the Magos in my head, his voice an avalanche of binary fury. Unity is perfection. Dissonance is death. The pain builds until my vision fractures into lines of light. And yet, through it all, I hear Nera's voice. Clear, defiant, human. You can't purify thought. The machines convulse. Sparks rain from the ceilings. Somewhere, a power conduit explodes. The hive shudders. For the first time in my life, the noise of machinery stops. True silence returns. When I wake, I'm lying on the floor. Smoke fills the air, thick and acrid. The implants on my wrists and neck are dead, their lights extinguished. The manufactorum is a ruin of flickering consoles and twisted metal. Drones lie scattered like broken insects. Across the room I see Nera, blood streaking one side of her face, but her eyes are alive. We stare at each other for a long time before she finally laughs. A small, bitter sound that feels almost blasphemous. I think we broke it, she says. Her voice trembles. Mine doesn't when I answer. No, it broke us first. We wander through the silence, stepping over cables and corpses, unsure where we're going. The hive groans above, entire sectors flickering in and out of power. Somewhere far off, alarms wail faintly, the sound of distant systems realizing their own failure. Through a shattered viewport, I see light, real light, pale and thin, filtering through cracks in the hive wall. It's the first sunlight I've ever seen. Dust floats in the beam like golden ash. For a heartbeat, the world feels infinite. Then the air shudders with the deep rumble of reactors reigniting. The system is rebooting. The Magos will rebuild. The machine always does. Nera touches my arm. Her skin is cold. "What now?" she asks. I look at the light, then at the darkness behind us, then at the endless factory that will soon awaken again. "We work," I say, the words bitter on my tongue. "But maybe this time we remember," she nods. We stand there until the hum of machinery returns, soft and inevitable, swallowing the silence we'd stolen. The prayer bells resume, their bronze voices echoing through the hive. The same words as before, as always. Work is prayer. Prayer is survival. Survival is victory. And as the line reforms, as the machines breathe life back into the manufactorum, I whisper a final truth the machine will never record. We are not saints. We are not heretics. We are the gears that dream of stopping, the Emperor's mercy. It turns out is not in survival or obedience. It's in the fleeting, forbidden thought that maybe one day the machinery will forget to start again.